morning everybody. Now, today's word is... Well, I'm only joking. There is no word today. Or if the word is anything, it is sketchbook tour, because that is what I'm going to do today. You've probably guessed from the length of this video, because I've got a horrible feeling it's going to be very long, that I'm going to go into a bit of crazy depth on this. And the main reason I want to do that is because doing this task and looking at a piece of art and knowing the work that came before it every single day of the month, you learn a lot about why you make certain choices, or at least I did, and I wanted to go into them and talk about specific things in each piece of art so that as I continued through the month you can look back and you can see how other things affected future work and vice versa, how they all affect one another. And to do that I'm going to have to go into a bit of depth. So if you're like me, get yourself a cup of tea, or most likely something with caffeine in, just so that you don't fall asleep, and just come and hang out with us, and we're going to just look through this sketchbook, look through everything that it has to offer, and yeah, just go through all of these different days, all the thoughts behind it. And if you're good and you don't skip right to the end of the video, which I can understand if you do want to, but please don't, is I'm going to mention a giveaway that I'm planning to do, and also a discount on the prints which I have made from the Inktober drawings. Come chill out with us, and I'm gonna go into crazy depth about myself because that's how I like to spend my time. Okay. So, day one was Swift. Yeah, I played it a bit obvious on day one because really I wasn't 100% sure how to do Inktober. I'd never done it before. I'd kind of passively followed it in the last few years, but I'd never really taken it as something I was going to do. So yeah, I thought stay within your comfort zone for the first drawing, do an animal, and you know, I love Swifts and I talk about this piece a lot more in the actual video. This kind of shows in a lot of ways the things that I wanted to work on through this month. I wanted to look at improving how I compose a page and trying to almost work out what is my wheelhouse. I think if you look at art from an outside perspective, you can see style a lot faster, but I really struggle to know what my style is, and I kind of feel like I need to have a better grasp of what my style is to try and start subverting it, and also try and harness it a lot more in future work. I want all my pieces to have a cohesive feel, and I know you probably will get that in general just through look of the draw, that is just how I work. I don't know, I'd like to be more self-aware, I guess. So this one is a great example, like I say, of the things I know I need to work on, because the composition ain't great. You know, I'll try and explain what I mean by that. You see, by having the line directly cutting through the Swift here, you don't get the effect that I wanted, which was basically the Swift going across a grass field. What I think would have made more sense is if the black line or the black background had been from this point and gone up. At least then you would have had an idea of it being above the ground, or even if it had cut at a different angle to the wings, because I think at the moment these kind of wings are quite perpendicular to this. So I think if anything, either this line should have been shifted or it should have been flipped, and I think both of those would have sorted out this object in space a lot better. So I don't want to get too much into a critique of every single day, but especially with this one, I think I can talk a little bit about what I learned from that piece, I guess, and what I understood from it. So that's Swift, and you know, I like how I got this effect here, but you know, I think it gets a lot better from day one. So next day was Divided. When I started off this month, I knew I wanted to try and do faces and people especially, because that's something I just find very difficult to do. And when I heard the word Divided, I thought, well, I want to do some kind of like androgynous person almost, so that when you see either side of the face, you can get this like different feeling of basically I wanted to split the face so that you could almost infer two different moods of the same symmetrical object. So I split the page in half, and I don't know if you can notice, but I think almost every drawing I did this month, I did pencil underline. The reason for that is I'm not actually really steadfast on keeping two outlines that I do in pencil. It's almost like a comfort blanket drawing with pencil, because I don't know, it gives me the feeling like I'm organised. But then when I get the pen on the page, I kind of ignore it quite badly, so I don't know, I think it's more like a hand warming exercise, like warming up my joints a bit. Like I'm really old, but I don't know, I find it a really easier way of drawing is if I've drawn something bad or drawing the thing I actually want to draw pretty decently. So yeah, I don't know, pencil kind of gives you a little barrier before using a medium that's a lot more unforgiving like ink, and yeah, comfort thing. And with this piece, again, I cannot sort out a composition beforehand. Bigger problems with this. Now, my personal feeling with faces at the moment is I can draw detailed faces. Okay, I can draw realistic. I know this doesn't look like I can, but I can draw quite good realistic at this point. What I can't do is simplify portraits. I really struggle to condense lines and just reduce the amount of detail in something and bring it back. So the thing that I've been doing to try and combat that at the moment, that you can see in this piece, is I'm trying to imagine different parts of the face as objects that are building up from a skull, because that's the way my brain easiest understands it. So to explain myself a little bit better, I don't know if you can see this, but I've drawn a guideline here of trying to get that eye socket of the skull, bringing down to the mouth to give myself that area. And I know that this space here, that area is going to be more of a hollow shape on the face. So then I imagine it. It sounds like a serial killer now I'm thinking about what I'm saying. But try not to be creeped out by what I'm saying. Then I imagine that skull having skin draped over it, and then I can imagine where a fold would be almost. And then with the eyes, I kind of imagine where the eye socket is, and then again I protrude an imagined like sphere into that. And then I can again fold and almost like cut the skin around the eye. This sounds terrifying. But this is how I'm having to, or at least this is how I've been trying to get my head around reducing portraits and faces and bodies to a point where I can imagine them as a restricted amount of lines. Because I don't know if that's more coming from an architecture background or not, but the idea of imagining a 3D object in space to me is a much simpler idea than, or it seems to be a faster way for me to conceive a face that I'm not just drawing from reference, than I have had success just continuously drawing over and over and over again, like I've been doing recently, you know. Lessons to be learned. Okay, so now day 3, the word was poison, and my first thought on this one, as I mentioned in the video, was fugu, the pufferfish meal. Like I said with the portrait, I knew I wanted to try and simplify figures because I think my general feeling is draw it as detailed as possible. I just have that kind of natural air, I guess, that I just feel like that's the right way of drawing. But in general, there's very little art that I enjoy of that style. I did when I was younger, and I think that this is kind of a leftover of the last time that I kind of studied art alone. And by art alone, I mean that I focus purely on it as a subject. I haven't really done that since I was probably like 17, and that's nearly 10 years ago now for me, so I just kind of fell off it, and I think that a lot of those remnant styles are still kind of my bread and butter, and as I've gotten older, they're just not the styles that I really enjoy anymore as much. So as I'm accumulating all these new artists that I really enjoy, I'm starting to go, no, I don't want to stick in this style anymore, you know, it's in the past, I don't want to do it anymore. So this was kind of my attempt of trying to simplify my work and just try more of like a cartoon style, which I never do, but I love it. I love like animation and cartoons. I love simplified figures. So yeah, I knew I wanted to try it out, and I was really happy with it in the end. I like this guy. I think he's really cute. I should try and make him a pin or something. A really spiky, painful pin. But I just think he's really cute. I like his like, little gormless face. And I like the composition. It's probably one of my favourite pieces when I look back at it. So yeah, not much more to say on that, but I was quite happy with how that one turned out. So, day 4. Even though I do quite like this piece, I kind of feel like the best part about it isn't a feature that maybe most people would initially pick up on as being quite good. To me, the thing that I really liked about this piece was I wanted to try and give this effect of something being just breaking the surface, or just at the surface of a massive, like, sheet of water. So I knew I wanted to try and get this effect here of painting with the ink all watered down in that kind of like, sea foam look that you see when you look up at water. But as I was looking at reference images to try and get that idea, I started to like the kind of blends of colour, but I had no idea how I was going to achieve that. So after I'd drawn everything, after I'd done this, as you can see in the video, I did all of that, I kind of thought, well, how the hell am I going to add this? How am I going to add this level of shade? I had no idea on how to do it. So I just watered down the blue and the green ink that I kind of like loosely mixed a little bit. And I just started like just randomly stroking it just all across the page. And I think it really gave me the effect. I don't know how it happened, but that's the part I'm most happy about in this drawing. Because there's a lot of things that, looking at it, I think just would be so much better if I had more time to spend on it, which I could imagine doing, maybe. Like, I wanted to try and use the brush pen, and I knew that I wanted these in the foreground, so I thought, oh, it's a great excuse to have a thicker line weight for something in the foreground, and I get to use the line pen. I'm a genius. This is a perfect moment. And yet, I really don't like them. I think I got better with the brush pen through the month, but God, I really struggled to control it, and you can see it at moments like this, and here. But really, I'm not going to be horrifically cruel on myself with it, because for one, I don't think that's actually useful, because I think that type of attitude is more of a deterrent than it is a help. I think it went quite well, but I think that a lot of the things that I liked about it were not things that I set out thinking I would like the best. It's just how it is sometimes, isn't it? Like I say, happy in a way. And this one is long. Now, when I showed these my sister, this was her favourite one, and yeah, it's funny because this is not my favourite one. And I don't want to start getting all dark and dingy on this. I don't want this to be a really depressing thing to listen to. So I'm not going to labour over my thoughts on it. I don't know. To me, too much information is lost, I guess, is what I would say. And I am usually better at drawing curves. And so I think maybe my eyes are like, yeah, redo this. Like, I don't know. It's just not my favourite. I like the style. I mean, I was inspired by Graham Sutherland, as I mentioned in the video, who often uses these kind of like more abstract forms against very like bright and bizarre colour palettes. And I thought I wanted to do something like that when I approached this as like a modern Rapunzel. And in that way I'm okay, but there's little bits where I was messing about where I should have put the pen down. I think that to me this is quite a big example of you need to put the pen down. Which is something that I took forward in the rest of this sketchbook, and that's the thing I want to just highlight, because I know I'm spending quite a long time on these initial ones, but I think it's because these initial ones are a really good hint of how things turned out through the month. Only by looking at them for an extended period of time, as I did when I was editing, made me realise a lot of these little things that I wanted to change, and they kind of fed into later pieces of work. So that's just why I wanted to go into a little bit more detail about these ones. Don't worry, I will hurry up. Like I mentioned in some of the earlier pieces, this is kind of an example of my earlier days starting to infect my later days. And by that I mean I was beginning to realise that I wanted to practice composition, practice people. They were the two things that I knew deep down I wanted to do. Did I think I was good enough to do them through the month? No. But I also knew that this isn't a performance. I'm not like drawing for anyone's approval, if you know what I mean. It's really nice to share work and to see it, but I think sometimes it can be quite a self-inflicted, like, demotivational force, thinking that you have to show a piece to someone right after it's been done. Now, I wanted to record and to work and to do that, and the main reason was that I wanted to force myself to produce a piece of work every day and to hopefully meet artists who also were trying to practice these things, because I just barely knew anyone who does that. And I was, really happy that at the end of this month I was able to do both. It kind of helped me solidify of, well, you might as well take the chance. And with this one, I'm really glad I did take that chance, because I'm not sure if you can see it on the camera, the sword, how it reflects in the light. I'm not sure if that's showing it. Let's hope. But what I do is I drew the piece originally so that when I would paint over with the ink, I would get these lines, if you can see them. And I was really happy with how that turned out. I really liked that kind of metallic effect, and I think I definitely use that again. Yeah, and I was quite happy with that. And I also, through my own impatience, painted while this was still wet, but I ended up quite liking that as well. I kind of like this kind of almost like concrete-y look that the ink wash ended up having. So this was a bit of a comedy of errors, but there's lots of little bits I like about it. And it was probably the moment that I thought, no, just do it. Just do what you want to draw. Just practice something. And it doesn't matter if it ain't great, because you'll have got the practice in. And yeah, it just gave me a bit of confidence, I guess. So this piece I personally like quite a lot. And yet I doubt it's going to be many people's favourite, but I think just personally this is one that I was really proud of. So, for day 7, I had a few ideas for this that didn't end up happening. And that isn't just it's not a purely negative thing. My first initial reaction was a shy person. I think most people surely think of a shy person. Especially the eyes was something that I wanted to focus on. But as you can see in this piece, my big focus was the eyes following the line of the sword. So I knew I didn't want to do eyes in 2 days in a row. But then, when it came to shy, all I could then think of was like a shy creature. I kind of have a natural affinity with rabbits, which is going to sound a bit weird, I guess, but I just always draw them. And I think I mentioned in one of the videos about things that I would always draw in my school books. I'm not sure about you guys, but that is what I always did. I just drew loads and loads of rubbish all over my school books. I've ruined them all. That is all I did during class. I was a terrible student. Yeah, I loved drawing. I did it all the time. Main things I would draw is clouds, which I mentioned later on, and rabbits. And the second I couldn't think of a creature that was camera shy, I immediately fell onto rabbits because I knew I could just draw one, and I thought that I could stylize it in a certain way that would kind of go better with all of these leaves and more like natural shapes that I tried to do in a more like angular, like scribbly pen style. My only trouble with this piece on a personal level is I originally planned, and I'm sure you can imagine, to fill all of these little spaces with the black ink and kind of like bring it all in so that only this area was white. However, I had set myself a 30-minute time limit through Inktober, and that was, as I mentioned before, to force myself to stay within a certain time limit and to not overwork pieces. After the first initial ones, as I mentioned, I became far more strict with myself because of things like long. There were a lot of things looking back on it that I thought, no, you overworked that piece. You should have stopped at 20 minutes. So I thought with this one, no, stop overworking things for God's sake. But because I'd started this corner, I knew I would have to create a border of some kind or else it would just look weird. So this one is a little bit of that mask mistake with intention kind of thing, where I'm trying to make it look as if I meant to do this. in the afterthought, but it was more of I didn't really estimate my time well. I would say that this is the moment where I start moving out of really a critical viewpoint, and this kind of forced me to go, no, be more decisive, think through these a little bit more. You've got to start practicing what you're preaching to yourself. So this is kind of like the turning point drawing for me in this sketchbook. And this, honestly, is my favourite piece of this month. I would say this is the closest to just my style in general. When I made this, when this was complete, I thought, this is how I draw. This is me. I am a crooked giraffe. I don't know, it felt right. Everything about it felt right. I'd started to get a grasp of ink washes and started to be able to control ink when it was wet. Because I was forcibly restraining myself to not do this, I was able to build it up, and I was really happy with how the darkness happened, of just kind of doing these all initially and then slowly building up only certain blobs. And this to me is probably my favourite piece, just because it is that moment where I started to get into my groove, which, I mean, thinking about it being on day 8, it kind of took me a week to get into Inktober, so maybe next year will be easier. And this is kind of me going, well, yesterday went really well, I'm just gonna go crazy today. I was just feeling excited and happy, and I think I was just so glad that this didn't feel laborious anymore. And I think it's because I had tried to set so many rules in that first week, and trying to, I mean, it's clear doing this review of exactly how I was thinking. I'm so critical and so pernickety about every little detail in those 7 days that no wonder I wasn't enjoying it as much. No wonder it's not my favourite drawings in the month. But after that, it was like, no, just start enjoying yourself. Just, you're not going to last a month if you aren't enjoying yourself. I think that's basically how I felt. And with this one, I took a paintbrush, and I'm just like, you can see I'm just like dabbing, I'm just going crazy. I just, in the video, I didn't even plan to add any colour to the eyes. I was planning to leave them pure white, but then I was just like, nah, come on, let's get yellow on there, let's get a bit of gold on there. And yeah, I don't know, it's a really cool piece to see in the light if you can. Yeah, this is like one of my favourites for just, I feel like it's the most expressive piece, and I think it's got to be one of the few ones that take up the entire page, if the only one. But yeah, this is the one where I was like, yeah, like, this is a really good time, and I was starting to really get into it. And I think this is probably when I first started talking to people, possibly. I'm not sure, I'd have to check the video, but I think this is the first time I actually started to see the videos of other people, to be able to find them. And yeah, I think seeing all of these people work and how different they were all approaching it, and that difference was so personal. I think it said so much about them that I thought, well, what was he saying about me? So yeah, I just wanted to, I don't know, just like really get into it. So this was a lot of fun, this one, and yeah, I was really happy with how it turned out. Gigantic's a weird one. I have no idea. I look back at it and I still actually can't think of a decent prompt idea for this word. The only thing I could think of, bar this, was like the BFG, and I'd really kind of like, in those early days, set myself so many little rules, and one of them had been no fan art, don't do fan art, don't do someone else's work. Yeah, I just kind of tied my hands behind my back a little bit with that. And yeah, I could have done a gigantic person, and I think I did sketch a few. I don't think you can see them on the page, but I did sketch a few giants. Yeah, I think because I weren't really feeling them, and I didn't want to spend forever sketching hundreds of ideas and then not drawing something, I just kind of got the brush pen out, which was something I knew I wanted to keep practicing, and I thought, oh, come on, just draw something. This was when the weather was starting to get a bit chilly. And I was wearing probably one of the first jumpers I've worn this year. It was that kind of feeling of, the weather's starting to turn and we're starting to get into the proper autumn, winter weather. And yeah, it was just kind of like my reaction to that change of season, I guess. And it was more about that than it was the prompt. Very, very fairly about the prompt. And just a little detail that I did add, because I was trying to add like little bunnies. You can see like a little bunny motif on the jumper. I don't know why, it's like an addiction, so that's what I drew there. Now run, this was like my moment where I thought, let's really get experimental on this, because like I said before, I wasn't really 100% sure I had a style. I kind of felt like you'll only see your style if you try lots of different techniques, and just practicing with these mediums that I haven't really tried much, because I've never really used inks before this month. And I just wanted to see like the extent of how much I could play with them, because I was getting to this point of thinking that this sketchbook could be quite useful to use as a reference book. When I plan to use ink in the future, I can flick through and see some of the different ways that I've used ink, and maybe it will kind of inspire me in the future. And this one, I thought, wow, wouldn't it be great to do a drawing where the ink runs? I knew I wanted to keep it graphical, and this is probably the thing I'm most proud of, is two things. I like the shape of this figure, how it's all kind of like composed of just lines, and I really like how when I tried to get these idea of like trees here, and I built it on top of the ink wash, I really struggled to get the ink to properly run. It's a really weird thing. I expected the ink to just basically fall off the page. It didn't. It kind of like all congealed here if you watch the video. It's not like a massively movable medium in the way I think I was imagining it as watercolours. So when I was trying to get them here, I thought, oh, it's not going to do this kind of like reflection that I wanted to try and achieve. And yeah, if you see me, I kind of like struggle just dabbing water everywhere and trying to get this and pulling the page and doing all that. But in the end, I was really happy with how they turned out as well, and adding that kind of like white line kind of gave it a nice just crack against the two so that you can see it as if it's almost a reflection. And there's lots of nice little mistakes here where the ink wasn't able to run fully, but it left these really interesting white reflections that almost could look like the sky reflecting on the water. So it was a really nice mistake, that. Well, a really nice accident to happen. So yeah, there's a lot that I like about this piece. You know, just in general, it was a lot of fun to make. The only thing I would say is I really tried to use masking fluid again in this piece, and I struggled so much with masking fluid. I still haven't found a way of using it this entire Inktober. Yeah, I don't understand masking fluid, guys. If you're able to explain it to me, please do, because I'm really struggling to use it still. Now, for Shattered, I felt that Crooked fitted Shattered better than what I had drawn. And then I thought, well, do you want to draw Crooked for Shattered to make up the entire number? And I still didn't have a great idea for Crooked, but I really liked what I did for Crooked, so I thought, nah, just do it again, just draw it again. This was really, really fun to work out compositionally. I basically drew the pencil line along here, like you can see, drew out all of this piece, and then just kind of shifted everything as I started to imagine this piece. I did shift again and shift again. And yeah, it was really a lot of fun, and I really liked how the white ink, I wanted to try and create that kind of texture that you see on octopus, you know, where they have that kind of like weird mottled colour and texture to them, and I wasn't really sure I could get it. I mean, it's one of those great moments where you've got a broken brush and it keeps making, if you notice, all of these like weird little shapes, but it actually kind of gave it a nice texture in the end as well. So it struggles with what a few of these pages do with run. It's gone right through, but you know, that's just what you get for working in a bit of a cheaper sketchbook. But no, it's been a really, I was really happy with this piece. So now for teaming. I'm not upset, I'm just disappointed. No, I don't mind this piece, but this was me seeing if something worked, trying a little bit of an experiment, and it didn't go great. But it did teach me a lot for the next day's piece, and I think I might talk more about it there. In general, I just wanted to try and use the ink washes in more of a block tone way, and just simplify something really down to like its base values. And by that I mean blank layer, one more ink wash to add shadow, one final darker ink wash to add deep shadow. That was it. I didn't want to go much further than that in the entire piece. That's what I wanted to focus on. and I kind of wanted to play a little bit with using a composition that kind of only uses half the, well, not half the page, but you know what I mean, breaks up the page a lot. I think like any experiment, I'm glad I did it, because it showed me the limitation of my skill with ink at that point, and it also taught me a lesson on what would really work really well. I think that this piece, given half an hour longer to work on it, I would get an ink pen out and I would add loads of like realistic detail to it. I would probably leave the background the same though. I'm kind of happy with the background. It's the only bit that really gets me going in this piece is I like the kind of simplified background shapes. I think maybe it's a lesson in when I want to abandon things, and this, to me, is unfinished, I guess. So it's okay, but it's only half done, so that's how I feel with that one. However, all of the pain of number 13 came through when I did number 14 for Fears. Like I say, not really disappointed with the day before, but I knew that I hadn't achieved what I'd set out to do. It gave me a bit of fire in my belly. I knew I wanted to do it again the next day, and that's what came of this one. And I knew I wanted to do a cat because there is no fiercer animal than the house cat, especially when it's going after a little mouse. I knew I wanted to draw that, but I wanted to give that style a go of trying to keep a very simple ink wash of just building it up and not using a pen, just keeping away from a pen and trying to add all the detail I wanted with that. And I looked at a photo reference of my cat to do this. I mean, if you've got a cat, you'll know it yourself, but they have a version of an eyebrow in that they don't have very much hair here and here, and they also obviously have a ridge of the nose, and then you have the spacing around the eye that often is a little bit lighter, and then you've got the deeper part there. So I knew by doing a black cat I could just build up the ink wash in that way of just building up where the hair was thickest and then leaving the paler areas to do that. And I thought that really, I don't know, I just really like how it ended up turning out on this one. I liked how that built up because I think it's got an air of realism in that, yeah, that is kind of how the fur would go, but there is no texture that you would initially, I guess, imagine, or not the way that you would depict a fur, I guess, is where I'm going with that. And yeah, I just thought it was quite a cool one. I quite like the style. I don't know. This feels like the furthest removed from me. It's like somebody else painted this one a little bit. I did a big bloody drop of green ink by accident right here. And I was like, oh bugger, like I wanted this all to be white, I wanted this all like this, I thought it'd be really nice, it's just going psh, I thought, oh, that'd be really cool. And then I dropped a big bloody dollop of green ink right at the last minute. Oh, I was annoyed. But I thought, nah, fuck it. So I got the paintbrush and I gave it a swipe across the page. It's as if it's like a shadow of some kind, I don't know. I kind of like that it broke up all of this like white space now. Yeah, maybe that was me being quite fierce. I was like, yeah, go on. This is quite a fun piece, so I was quite happy with it. Okay, and now, Mysterious. I like this piece a lot, and one of the things I probably like the most about this piece is actually a comment I got from Kai. He creates artwork as well, and I want to talk a little bit more about artists at the end of this video who I found very inspirational in this month of Inktober and who have been really lucky to meet. And Kai is someone specifically who I'm going to mention in more detail then, and has kind of changed how even I look at this, and I drew the bloody thing. I don't know, I kind of almost felt like there was something a little scary about this, but seeing as a hopeful piece, I don't know, it just kind of, yeah, it changed my perspective a lot, I guess, and I really liked that comment. I mean, my main feeling with the piece was to almost have you travel through the fence. I wanted this kind of like thing in the close foreground, and it's as if you're following the thing that's broken through the fence. And the light, I didn't know if I wanted it to almost be the setting of like a moon, or that was the object that you were following. I wanted to try and, I I wanted to keep it mysterious. That's it's pretty clear that's where I was going. So that was more the general feeling on it. This one, if you watch the video, I go through a lot of stages while I'm doing this. It goes like a really dark black and blue, and then I start adding a grey, and then I start adding the silver to this, and there's a lot of stages in this painting. I think it is because I was purely doing it on like almost like a visceral level, like it was just how I was feeling in that moment. And did I like, oh no, I'm gonna add this, I'm gonna do that. It was very spontaneous, this piece. It's probably the closest I've got to the feeling I usually get when I do a much larger piece of art. I think I briefly talked about this in a previous video. One of the things I love about art is when you can get lost in it. It's like an outlet, I guess. People call it an outlet, I guess, but I think I mean that more in the sense that it expresses something. When you can lose yourself in a piece of art, I think you are just expressing something that you are feeling at the time, but you maybe aren't able to even fully recognise until you've just done something that's purely based upon how you're feeling. I think art's a great thing for that, because the only other way I can think of that you can really do that is either physically through like sports and through activity, losing yourself in an activity. But in those cases, you're not really getting a substance that you could see at the end that you can reflect upon. And I think that art has this wonderful ability of allowing you to be far more introspective about how you're approaching things, I guess. And I think it's the reason why so many artists are just more self-reflective, I guess. And I don't think that's only, you know, I wouldn't say that's just a purely good thing. I think that that's often the reason why artists are also a little bit more negative about themselves. It's because they look far more honestly and they see more honest work from themselves that they've created that maybe doesn't always say the things that they wish it said about them. Because we all have an idea of what we think of ourselves. Yeah, I'm going into a lot of weird depth with this. It just means a lot to me, I guess, this drawing. Yeah, I was just quite happy with how it turned out. It's one of my favourites, I guess. Hi everyone, this is Jasmine from the future because I'm editing this video and it is way too long in going through the entire month in one go, so I've decided to split this video into two parts, as you might have guessed from the title. But I want to go through the giveaway now so that I can announce the winner when part 2 comes up in a few days, so you've only got really a couple of days to enter this. Now, what I'm giving away is a free print from this month, and to win, all you have to really do is leave a comment underneath on what your favourite piece is. Maybe talk about why, because I think that'd be quite fun to have a read of. And maybe start a discussion underneath here too about which everyone's favourite is. Maybe everyone has the same favourite, I don't know. I think it'd be a lot of fun to find out. I'll randomly pick out the winner in a few days and announce you in the next video. Obviously, I'll need to be able to send it you, so you've got to be happy for me to have your address. But everything is free, and yeah, you just have to tell me whether you prefer it on matte or glossy paper. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is over on my Etsy shop, I wanted to do a discount for you guys for being so supportive this month. If you type in Inktober 2017, I'll put the code on the video somewhere, into the coupon code part, when you buy one or more of the Inktober prints, you'll get a 10% discount. Now, I'm planning on doing this giveaway here and another one, basically same rules, same prize, over on Instagram. So if you want to double your chances of winning one of these prints, you can go and cheat and go over there. But it's up to you, I don't really mind, to be honest. I just really want to share, you know, just some of this work with you guys, just for making this Inktober a lot more fun. So yeah, if you'd like to pick up some of the prints or some of the work that you've seen today that I began talking through, or some that are going to come up in the second part that you can see the making of in the Inktober playlist that I'm going to somehow work out to link here, then drop me a line, and I hope you're all doing well, and I'll see you in a couple of days with part 2.